and welcome to Role Player Rewind. I'm your host, Kronos. In this new show, I'll be reviewing classic role-playing games ranging from console to PC in somewhat deliberated and hopefully entertaining fashion. But first, some setup. I love role-playing games, from 8-bit console classics to modern-day dungeon crawlers. I don't know what it is about this genre, but throughout my illustrious gaming career, they've always managed to both fascinate me and entertain me for countless hours of sword-slashing and spell-casting brilliance. Even a bad RPG can often still be worth playing, in my opinion, but I wanted to shed some light and really focus on some classic and beloved role-playing games that the newer generations might not be as familiar with. In this show, I'll mainly be doing games I really have a fondness or nostalgia for, but even in the annals of video game RPG history, there are some stinkers out there I might consider reviewing as well. What's my favorite RPG or series, you may ask? You know, that's a really good question. If I had to pick one, probably off the top of my head, I'd have to say my favorite... Oh my god, I'm sorry about that. Wow. Way to ruin your first review. What the hell? International call? Screw that. Anyway, where was I? Note, in addition to reviewing the game, I will be providing plot information with copious amounts of spoilers. You have been warned. Anyway, without further ado, on to the review. And in this premiere episode, the subject of our discussion will be the epic 1993 PC title by Sierra Online and Dynamic Software, Betrayal at Krondor. Betrayal at Krondor is a high fantasy tale that takes place within the alternate universe, or long past, land of Mid-Chemia, based in the settings of acclaimed fantasy writer Raymond E. Feist. While research led me to discover that he himself did not contribute much directly to the production, he was given final editorial say by the game's producers, Neil Halford and John Cutter. Feist himself was pleased enough with the production that he would later include it as canon in his storylines, even providing his fans with a novelization based on the game called Krondor, The Betrayal. I've read several of his novels, and it's very easy to get into and lose yourself in his style of writing. Check them out if you get the chance. Though it can help to understand the backstory a little bit by reading his books, it's not necessary to enjoy the game. Our story begins on a dark and stormy night where your party has just been ambushed by assassins. Your first task is to take your intrepid party of Senor Locklear and Owen Belfort to escort your voluntary prisoner, Gorath of Ardanian. He's a Moradel, or as we would say it, an elf. Technically there's a difference, but he's got pointed ears, so it counts. If you imagine your characters with literally one hit point left, right on the brink of death or being knocked unconscious, you'd have to imagine that they would probably have some debilitations. You know, they might have broken bones, they might be bleeding profusely, they might barely even be able to stand. Betrayal at Krondor makes this look much more realistic by instituting a stamina and health system and penalties for when your energy gets too low. Each of the characters have a set amount of health and stamina points. First, damage, or spellcasting, only affects your stamina, slowly draining until you start to receive significant damage. At this point, your health points begin to lower. The game employs a penalty to all of your skills, strength, and speed the lower your health gets. So basically, the more beat up your character gets, the worse they then are at fighting and moving and anything that they usually do. While some may find this to make the difficulty a bit higher than it should be, I think that's rather realistic, and I really like it. Just as the party's about to exit the sewers, they run into Owen, who still wants to hang out with them, basically because he's bored. Begrudgingly, the party agrees to take him on, and they make their way along the eastern edges of the kingdom, eventually reaching the seaside port of Romney. Upon arrival at Romney, the intrepid crew discover that the detachment has been mercilessly slaughtered. And Chapter 2 ends, and Chapter 3 begins. The only bits of evidence the brave crew uncover as to who could be behind these nefarious doings? A brass spyglass and a silver spider. What ho! The game is afoot! And so begins perhaps my favorite chapter of the game, as it's not entirely clear where you need to go or what you need to do, and instead you have to solve a little bit of a murder mystery. There are some clever plot elements and twists that pop up in this chapter, and I really enjoyed it. I won't ruin the mystery for you, but a rather unlikely character ends up being unmasked as leader of a band of assassins known as the Nighthawks, who were behind the killings, and it is only through discovering proof of their connection both to the impending Moradel invasion from the north that Gorath warned the prince about, as well as the Romney killings, that the plot slowly begins to thicken. James is like, "Holy shit, son, this just got real," and books it, leaving Owen and Gorath to fend for themselves, which of course goes perfectly according to plan. Chapter 4 begins with Owen and Gorath taken prisoner and marked for death in Sar-Sargoth, the seat of power for the Moradel villain of our tale, Delacon. After a long and miserable dungeon crawl with some rather imbalanced fights, the two make their escape from the dungeons of Sar-Sargoth and make a break for the Inklindel, a pass in the southwest area of the Northlands that will allow them to escape back to the kingdom. Before they do that, however, there's a few side quests to do before we are guided in the direction of Kulik, Gorath's former lover and wife. She helps them out by teaching Owen a useful spell called "And the Light Shall Lie" that will disguise them as common Moradel soldiers, allowing them to get the password from this guy that will allow them to cross the bridge back to safety. Anyway, as Chapter 4 ends, Gorath and Owen are escorted by Finn and the Border Patrol to just outside the Dimwood where Prince Arutha and his soldiers await. Owen and Gorath get Arutha up to speed, and Chapter 5 soon begins. In this chapter, we rejoin the good seigneurs Locklear and James as the old friends are reunited and head to North Warden to shore up the border defense. Along the way, they meet perhaps my favorite character of the game, the Baron of North Warden's court magician, Patris. Other than some of its spells, the old codger is unfortunately rather useless in battle, but I just love this guy's personality. He's so cantankerous and, get off my lawn, kids. It's awesome. He amuses me so much. Not a whole lot happens in Chapter 5, to be perfectly honest, though it does have one of the most annoying, not difficult, just annoying, battles in the game where you face 6 Moradel spellcasters all at the same time. And there's nothing you can fucking do about it. Nothing. Hope you saved. Try again. And this is a forced battle with no chance of an advantage to move first, so you just have to hope. Another... What, again? Oh. What the hell? No, I'm not answering it. International call... Sheesh. Chapter 5 ends with the battle at North Warden as the kingdom defends its outskirts from a Moradel attack. Oh! Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark. Chapter 6 begins with a contemplative pug being contemplative as he stares outside the window at the coming storm. I see what you did there, writers. And just as he's about to go and do something more useful, a shimmering gateway appears in front of him and out steps Makala, a fellow magician and council member from the distant kingdom of Siranoani. The Sirani magician's intentions at first appear peaceful, but soon we discover he has treachery in mind. With a little bit of exposition, he reveals that he is in league with the Moradel and wants to help them enter the kingdom to reach a common but shadowy goal, and has been aiding Delacon in the northern lands this entire time. Pug is less than pleased at this and threatens him in return, but is unable to do anything after Makala reveals that he has kidnapped his daughter Gamina and imprisoned her in a distant dimension. Pug, with no choice but to go and search for his kidnapped daughter, leaves a mysterious message on the wall in magical script, the Book of Macros. Owen and Gorath, fresh off their escape from the Northlands, arrive shortly thereafter back in Krondor searching for the wizard, where Pug's wife Katala informs them that she has no clue where he nor Gamina could be. With little to go on but this mysterious message, Owen and Gorath must spend Chapter 6 unraveling the mystery of this phrase, as well as finding out what has become of Master Magician Pug and his kin. Now this chapter really starts to go crazy with the side quest. I mean, pretty much the entire map is now available to you, and pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to find a lot of side quests. Some more useful than others.
After sniffing out a few more clues and investigating some trails, the dynamic duo are led toward the forested woodlands beyond the mountains to the kingdom of Elvandar, or as I like to call it, the kingdom of how the hell am I supposed to see anything? You'll cut to the map a ton in this area because the sprite graphics for the trees literally cover up the entire screen. You'll need to make liberal use of the spyglass, or the spell Eyes of Bishop, to have any freaking clue where anything is or where you're going. With some persistence, however, the crew eventually arrive at the seat of power for the elves, the beautiful Queen Aglarana and Prince Consort Thomas, the current possessors of the Book of Macros the Black. So as Chapter 7 begins, a Moradel is being tortured with a Ruth on hand to observe and interrogate as to how Delicon plans to get to Sethanon. So as it turns out, the Moradel have managed to get their hands on a rift gate, which will make long-distance travel possible for the Moradel army to instantly and conveniently teleport into the Dimwood, just northwest of Sethanon, making it simple for them to attack. Chapter 7 places you back in the more than capable hands of Seigneurs Locklear and James, along with that lovable old coot, Patris. With a lot more wandering about, you eventually learn that the Rift Machine is hidden behind an illusion of a mountain. It's protected by a few enemies, but they're small potatoes by this point, and no trouble. Flinging an item found earlier into the Rift Machine causes it to implode.
Banished to the black hole!
I'm sorry, I need a minute.
Chapter 8 brings us back to Gorath and Owen, now in a strange alien world you later find is known as Temeriania, and Owen, much to his horror, discovers he can't use magic.
This is pretty annoying because at this point in the game it's basically your magical ability that's carrying you through fights. As a result, you will use a lot of melee battling in this world, and that makes the battles take forever.
With a bit of exploring and piecing together clues left by Pug, you eventually find and meet up with him. Despite how excited you might have been to adventure with the greatest magician in the kingdom, Pug has sadly been weakened and stripped of most of his magic for the time being. Together with his help and some more exploration of the island, you eventually find and discover Gamina, and the group teleport home to the kingdom, appearing, rather conveniently, right in front of a rather confused Seigneur Locklear and James. Chapter 9, or Mad God's Rage, takes place in the ruined dungeons at Sethanon, where Pug, Owen, and Gorath have to race to stop Makala from reaching something called the Life Stone, supposedly promising great power to those who can achieve it. Was this his plan all the time? Does Delicon want the stone too? What's the real goal here? It's a bit confusing, but at this point the plot really doesn't need to say too much more than go to X and kill person Y before Z happens.
And let's be honest, that's a plotline to pretty much every role-playing game ever made.
After finding and defeating the Serani Asshat 6 attendees, you will be able to access this final area where Makala awaits. Considering this is a final boss battle, he's really not too tough. As long as you make sure you freeze him with Fetters of Rhyme, or you stand near him so that he can't cast magic, you won't have too much trouble. He does have a ton of stamina and health, and is immune to most all spells though, so basically focus on freezing him and meleeing his ass into oblivion.
The story wraps itself up pretty quickly after that, which is a bit anticlimactic in my opinion, and not really all that satisfying. I mean, after slogging through all those battles and traveling all that distance, you expect a bigger payoff than that, don't you? Well, hey, at least it was better than this ending. I know, right?
This game, in so many words, is a masterpiece. Its strengths are many and weaknesses few. The writing is very convincing in sucking you into the world of Midkemia. You know, so many times with high fantasy writing, it can become contrived or seem too forced, as well as make the characters flat, stereotypical, and uninteresting. But I can't possibly convey just how well the producers managed to make all of this very believable, very real. I mean, it just comes alive. The characters have unique personalities and backstories, making it seem like you're just stepping into a long-standing and continuing epic. While the characters don't really develop a lot, Owen's character definitely does. He slowly grows from an innocent, happy-go-lucky kid to a grim and determined warrior, and that's fun to watch. Even some of the NPCs are interesting. What the hell was going on with the Book? Is Lyle really related to James in some way? Who is the Crawler? And why did Petrus have to die?
He lives on in our hearts, and will be with us always. God bless you, you drunken, crazy-addled old coot.
The game system has a simple and intuitive point-and-click style that lends itself well to a game such as this. The graphics are obviously a little older and don't stand up as well, but considering what abominations would soon be coming... The animations and FMV-like animation style that this game portrays is well executed and beautiful to look at. Sure, the world is a bit polygonal, and the sprites of things like trees and buildings are a little messy, but these limitations are forgivable when combined with the beautifully hand-drawn backgrounds and character model captures. The monsters are pretty stereotypical fare for a fantasy RPG, but they all have the same care given to their appearances as the characters, and provide a nice variety, keeping the combat from being too generic and too boring. While the AI has some balancing issues...
6 fucking spellcasters all at the same time!
Most of the time, the enemies are pretty clever and resourceful enough to provide challenges while still being mostly fair. I would be remiss at this point if I didn't talk about the music. I mean, sweet mercy, the music. I remember really enjoying the original ad-lib Sound Blaster music of this title back in the day, but the CD version of the music is just gorgeous. I mean, I walked in and out of areas repeatedly just so I could hear the music again. Though, as I said, while it's quite weird and very unfortunate that the music doesn't loop, what does play is no less than spectacular. So there you have it, Betrayal at Krondor. If you haven't had the fortune to play this one yourself, I can't recommend it enough. Go and get it from GOG.com, goodoldgames.com, buy it, download it, it's cheap, and then lose yourself in this epic fantasy world that is Mid-Khemia. Just don't blame me for your loss of productivity.
And that was Role Player Rewind. I'm your host, Kronos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Now, where did I put that next game I was gonna review? Oh, here it is. Oh my god, are you kidding me? What? Same number? Oh, for crying out loud. What?
Well, it's about damn time you answered the phone.
What? Who the hell is this? How'd you get my number?
It is I, Senior James, head scout for Prince Arutha of Krondor. And who the hell do you think you are, mocking my facial expressions, my clothes, and calling me a thief? I'll have you know I was out slaying Moradel generals millennia before you were even in diapers. And that portrait of me is completely inaccurate. My hair is neatly maintained as it should be for a senior in my position.
Now listen, you garish... Wait, what? How is this even possible? If this were millennia ago, how would you have a phone and how did you get this number? And why am I having a conversation with a fictional character?
Fictional character, eh? At least I'm not sitting in front of some magical box of light claiming to be doing something worthwhile and entertaining. I'm out saving this ungrateful land so that peasants like you can have the freedom to work, save up sovereigns, and go out and buy food that make ration packs look like a royal feast. Of course, I shouldn't have expected any gratitude from it.
Oh, for God's sake. Okay, fine. I get it. You're a noble hero who played an integral part in saving the world. Your facial expressions aren't weird, your clothes are perfect for a thief, and your mother's a saint. There, happy?
Better, but I've got a few more things to discuss with you, peasants.
No! And don't ever call me again! That's right. I had a cameo in my first review.
bastard hung up on me. Hello, Mr. Antweiler? I just wanted to ask you something real quick here. What's a paladin?